Good evening. Welcome to ECE's 89th Annual Meeting. Before we kick things off, I'd like to thank the Braham Event Center volunteers for their work today. I stopped into the kitchen just a minute ago and was talking to them about the amazing community that Braham is. I've told a lot of people in communities around here that Braham is the town that never heard that it was supposed to die. It's just amazing to see the volunteers here and the hard work that goes into the event. So please, let's give them a round of applause for the work they did. With respect to members of all beliefs, we'll now start the meeting with an invocation. Please bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with grateful hearts, thankful for the opportunity to gather as a cooperative, as neighbors, colleagues, and stewards of the communities we serve. We thank you for the blessings of this past year, for the work accomplished, the challenges overcome, and the progress made. We are mindful of the dedication of our employees, the trust of our members, and the spirit of cooperation that guides our mission. As we begin this meeting, we ask for your presence to be among us. Grant us wisdom in our discussions, clarity in our decisions, and unity in our purpose. Help us to lead with integrity, to serve with compassion, and to always act in the best interest of those who depend on us. May our conversations today reflect not only the values of our cooperative, but also the deeper calling to care for one another, to invest in our future, and to build a legacy of reliability, innovation, and hope. We ask your blessings on this meeting, on our membership, and on the communities we are privileged to serve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I'd like to invite our chair, Jerry Tweet, to the stage.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. As chair of the eCentral Energy Board of Directors, my role for today's meeting is to facilitate. It is the same role I take at the monthly board meetings, which all directors attend. As your representatives, we take our roles seriously, and we are diligent in the governance of eCentral Energy, and we appreciate you being here tonight. In your registration bag, you will find the annual report and the agenda for today's meeting. The annual report offers an overview of how ECE embraced the 7 cooperative principles last year, plus a transparent review of the co-op's 2024 finances. The agenda includes a list of meeting rules and last year's annual meeting minutes. We have 221 members registered for tonight's meeting. Therefore, I declare that a quorum is present and call eCentral Energy's 2025 annual meeting to order. At this time, we'd like to take a moment to recognize our veterans that are here tonight. If you have served or are currently serving in the United States Armed Forces, we invite you to please stand if you are able so that we may honor you. So veterans, please stand. On behalf of all of us here, we thank you for your service and sacrifice. Now, if everyone would please stand, remove your hats, and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. You will have an opportunity to ask questions later in the meeting. A list of meeting rules has been printed on the agenda. Without objection, the meeting rules will stand approved as printed. Jim Jessick, our Secretary-Treasurer, is prepared to read the official notice of the meeting and the certificate of mailing. The notice of the meeting was previously mailed to each member in accordance with the cooperative's bylaws. Without objection, the official notice of the meeting and the certificate of mailing will stand approved in accordance with the information mailed to each voting member. Last year's annual meeting minutes are printed inside the agenda. Without objection, the minutes will stand approved as written. Now please welcome Justin Johns back to the stage, please.
Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the current ECE Board of Directors. These are members who represent the communities within each of our 6 districts. Directors, please stand when your name is called and remain standing until all have been introduced. Members, please hold your applause until I introduce all of them. From District 1, we have Greg Kivznicka and Shelley Nault. In District 2, Mike Gaynor and Lonnie Johnson. From District 3, Wayne Eller and Rick Olson. In District 4, Tom Schonecker. In District 5, Linda Leitala and Jerry Tweet. And from District 6, Jim Jessic and Ron Volker. How about a round of applause for these directors? So we have 3 directors who have chosen to conclude their service on the board, and I'd like to spend just a minute talking about each of them. Greg, could you stand up first, please? So Greg Kivznicka has served from District 1, and prior to being a director, Greg was an employee at ECE Annual Energy. And he'll be stepping down after the election after tonight. And Greg has a very distinct honor. He's the only person who's ever hired me twice. He hired me when I worked in energy services, and then he was on the board when I was hired as CEO. And he's a man of high integrity. He's a man who cares deeply about this cooperative, and he has been a role model and a mentor to me in what leadership is. So I want to thank Greg for his time on the board, and please join me in thanking him. Joe Morley, would you please stand up? Some of you may know Joe. He lives in the Cambridge area. He served as board chair last year and stepped down after the annual meeting last year. Joe was, to me, has been a fiscally responsible director, someone who cares deeply about the principles of this organization, and he has a passion for doing things right. One thing I learned about Joe as I became CEO was his intense desire for kind of a loyalty and alignment. He puts a lot of trust in people, and he values those relationships, and he was an asset to this organization as a director. So join me in thanking Joe Morley for his time. And last but not least, Jerry Tweet, please stand up. So Jerry served as board chair this year, but has been on the board for many years prior, and Jerry is, he's a community guy. Many times, Jerry would bring things that people had brought to him as concerns. And it's important for staff to hear those things. Jerry cares deeply about this organization. He cares deeply about the values of this organization and about doing the right thing for the members. He was always an advocate for you and always an advocate for the future of this organization. He was brave when we needed to be brave, and he brought up questions and tough questions when they needed to be brought up. So please join me in thanking Jerry for his time on the board. So later tonight we'll find out about the election, but these 3 directors had a total combined service of 48 years as ECE directors, and we couldn't be more thankful for their leadership, guidance, and complete dedication to the 67,000 members of ECE. And now it's my honor to welcome tonight's guest speaker, former Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Marlene Johnson. Marlene and I had a chance to spend some time together today, and I'll tell you, it was moving. Marlene's connections to this organization are deep, and I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from her. She is the daughter of ECE's first general manager, Buford Johnson. Like ECE, Marlene is committed to improving the lives of others. Her leadership skills led her to become Minnesota's first female lieutenant governor, serving in Governor Rudy Perpich's administration from 1983 until 1991. She's now on the advisory board of Kekenya's Dream, is a board member of the Washington Office on Latin America, and a trustee of the Alexandria Trust. And she's also one of those Braham people that I was talking about. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Marlene Johnson.
Thank you to the Board of Directors for inviting me, and thank you for all being here. It's a little emotional for me, I have to say, because, well, let's say it touches my heart in a very basic way. I grew up in a household where the electric cooperative movement was simply part of our family, and the annual meetings were a must-attend event for all of us in the family. I suspect there are many here, my age or even younger, everyone is probably younger than I am, I have to say at this point, who joined your parents for the annual meeting. Partly for the meal service, because those meetings used to be on Saturday, and it was kind of a lunch meeting, if I recall. And a gathering became a tradition and a celebration of the importance of bringing electricity to rural Minnesota. While this cooperative, which most of you know is the first in Minnesota, it was established prior to my birth, electricity only came to my grandmother's farm near Rush City on June 26, 1943, the day of my parents' wedding on that farm. My mother's first job out of the Minneapolis Business College was working for PIC, which is the original name of this co-op, going farm to farm with Russell Hegstrom, his granddaughter is somewhere out here, signing up farmers to be among the next group of members. Today, as I reflect on the incredible accomplishments of these last nearly 90 years, I am as excited about the strategic commitments of today to bring internet access to rural communities as well. The Rural Electric Cooperative Movement is the finest example of local leadership supported by national strategies to ensure the full participation of all of our citizens. At this point, most of you have heard that I've recently written a memoir, and while I spent most of my college years and working life believing that I could not write, with the encouragement of a few friends, as well as well-timed feedback to an early draft, I was able to let go of that negative self-doubt and get on with writing. It didn't help that it was during COVID, so I had lots of time on my hands and nobody else wanted to talk to me, so I got to writing. From then on, I can honestly say that I enjoyed every day of the writing and rewriting after feedback from the person who eventually became my official editor, but for months was simply my unofficial feedback person. And now I am having this amazing experience of sharing the book with friends and colleagues from my hometown, to those who supported my entrepreneurial efforts in St. Paul, then the 8 years of public service, and finally my years as leading an international education organization in Washington, D.C. Each venue in these last 6 months has been yet another opportunity to continue the reflection that got me writing in the first place, and revisiting conversations I had with my parents as a child or college student that only reappeared in my consciousness these years later. It won't surprise many of you that I was close to my dad. As the firstborn of his second family, I had a front row seat to so many stories about the farm he had prior to the co-op, about the founding of the co-op, about his limited education, and more. He left school after the 8th grade, yet I observed him every day using every opportunity he had to learn more. And for his children, getting an education was a requirement, as was life experience and expecting the same from his daughters as he expected of his sons. Our two older half-sisters became elementary school teachers, so they spent summers traveling the world. Their first summer after teaching their first year was a car trip to Alaska with two other young women to teach Bible school. These four young women piled into the car for the road trip to Alaska on the Alaska Highway, which at that point was a gravel road. Besides, I recall very vividly to this day when they left Braham. They left the house that I grew up in, and we were waving them off. I remember that very much, even today. My memory of that time is also of a neighbor phoning my dad and scolding him for allowing his girls to make this trip. And with a smile, I still remember that smile. His smile said, "And you're under the impression that I have any say in the matter." This is their adventure, so the best I can do is help them pack well. I didn't realize it until years later that Dad's support for his daughters and this summer adventure was one of my first memories of the kind of support I would experience from him at the various adventures that I would choose along the way. Then, in the last few weeks before coming here today, I was going through another round of scrapbooks and papers that my sister found in our mother's final apartment at Elmhurst. I found a letter that my dad, the one who had an 8th grade education, he wrote to the members of this co-op. I'd like to share that memo with you because as a person who spent their life thinking I couldn't write, I think of the courage it took for my dad to write a letter to the co-op members and have it be so well thought out. I mean, as you will see, there are a few places here that could have been edited, but there weren't editors on the co-op staff at the time, so I'm sure Dad was writing his own stuff. And it's a pretty good letter, and I think I'd like to share it. To the members of the Pick Cooperative Electric Association, the great day is here. We have stood together for a long time. We knew what we wanted, and we stuck together until we got it. We now have electricity in our homes. What 2 years ago was a probability is now an actuality. The new electric lines that will serve our community for many years to come are completed. Electricity is a faithful servant. If you use it properly, it can be persuaded to do almost any kind of work. Give electricity a chance to work for you, and it will pay its own wages. I just love this. You have had high hopes of electricity. That is shown by the enthusiasm and effort you have taken to make this project a success, and I believe that electricity will live up to the hopes you have. It will increase your income, it will raise the standard of living as no other thing can do, and it will bring more comfort, convenience, and real satisfaction to your homes and families. This is your line. As you enjoy the benefits and services of electricity over the months and years, you can well be proud of your part in building it. Rural electrification, organized and operated on a strictly cooperative basis, will do more to stabilize energy rates and combat the abuses of utility monopolies than will trust-busting legislation. The value of our association cannot be measured only by the saving it gives our own members by giving them service at cost, but we must also consider the savings it gives all rural users of electricity, which is already very evident by the fact that many farm users of electricity have had their rates cut in half without having any more users. It has been my privilege to serve as project superintendent of your project during the construction period, and I wish to take this opportunity of expressing my appreciation to the members of the association, as well as many other individuals, for their splendid cooperation by assisting in securing and granting rights of way, by assisting in so many other different ways, both during the period during organizing and during the construction period. Without the unfailing and loyal support of the people in our community, the organizing of the association and the building of our electric lines would have been an impossibility, regardless of any individual's or group's efforts. If the same cooperative spirit continues to exist among our members in the future as it has in the past, the success of our project will be assured. Cooperatively yours, Buford Johnson. Pretty good, don't you think? As I wrote my memoir, the most important insight I gained was a deeper appreciation for the leadership roles we each play from wherever we sit at any given time. It may be as chair of the board, or coaching a basketball team, or it may be recruiting volunteers to work at the food shelf or the event center, or doing the important work of supporting a young person whose confidence is lacking as he or she tries to compose their first term paper. Each of those roles is so important, and we have a responsibility and an opportunity from wherever we sit. Our communities need all of the above, and I'm so proud to be a product of a community and a cooperative movement that kept creating these opportunities for its children and adults. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you and for what you are contributing to this cooperative and this community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Marlene. Your connection to our heritage as a cooperative it was just amazing for me. I'm so glad that you were here today and willing to spend some time with us. And your comments on leadership are well taken, so thank you. The annual report in your registration bag contains detailed information about 2024. And I want to leave time for your questions, so I'm just going to touch on some of the highlights. If you'd like to follow along, please open your copy of the annual report. We've also provided paper and pens for you to jot down any questions, which you can ask in just a few moments, which is, by the way, my favorite part of this meeting, so please come up with some good ones. It truly is. Last year required ECE to face challenges head-on, and ultimately, we came out stronger. From upgrading infrastructure to expanding our fiber service, we were laser-focused on improving reliability and creating more value for our members. Our theme for 2024, Champions of Connection, couldn't be more fitting. Success comes from teamwork, strategy, and a commitment to never settling for the status quo. As you'll see on page 1 of your annual report, ECE is owned by the very people it serves. This means we're guided by the 7 cooperative principles, including democratic member control, concern for community, and a commitment to education and cooperation. These principles aren't just words on a page. They shape every decision we make and ensure that our focus remains on delivering reliable service, supporting local growth, and empowering you, our members. What does that mean? We don't just provide power and fiber internet. We invest in the well-being of the communities we serve, whether it's through energy efficiency programs, local job creation, broadband expansion, or youth scholarships. We are committed to making a lasting impact. Some highlights from 2024. Local events connected us with 16,000 community members. We awarded $97,500 in scholarships to high school and non-traditional students. Through the employee-funded Be the Light program, employees donated from their paycheck to the Be the Light program. We gave nearly $18,000 to nonprofits in the area. That is a testament to the character of the people that work at this organization, and I could not be more proud of them. And most importantly, we work tirelessly to educate members about safety, from roadside laws to storm preparedness. Simply put, when our communities thrive, we all thrive. That's the cooperative way. Last year, we made bold moves to improve our services and embrace new technology. We recognize the growing interest in renewable energy and the role that solar plays in a sustainable future. That's why we partnered with Osprey Wilds on their 716 kW solar expansion, demonstrating that by investing in well-planned solar projects, we ensure that renewable energy integrates smoothly within our system without compromising safety or affordability for the rest of our members. For those members making the switch to electric vehicles, ECE supported the installation of 30 electric vehicle charging stations throughout our service area. Our partnerships led to economic development projects in Malacca, Pine City, and other areas, helping local businesses thrive. After nearly 90 years, we've learned that strong, reliable infrastructure is the backbone of our service. That's why we invest in maintenance and technology. At the same time, challenges always arise, which is when our teamwork and focus on safety really shine. For example, when a Halloween storm caused widespread outages affecting 14,000 members, our team worked tirelessly to restore power. Our response to Hurricane Helene was a powerful example of cooperative principle number 6, cooperation among cooperatives. The idea that co-ops work together to serve their areas more effectively. When disaster struck South Carolina, we didn't hesitate to send crews to assist Blue Ridge Electric Cooperative. Just as we ask for support in our time of need, we stand ready to help fellow cooperatives when they face challenges. This spirit of mutual aid strengthens not just individual co-ops, but the entire cooperative network, ensuring reliability, resilience, and community support wherever it's needed. And for the 20th year in a row, ECE was recognized as a Tree Line USA utility, proof of our commitment to environmental stewardship. We're one of only 4 utilities in Minnesota with this unique distinction. The forestry team works hard to educate members on the importance of safe tree placement to avoid interference with our electric lines. Perhaps one of our most significant achievements in 2024 was the continued expansion of ECE Fiber. We're committed to ensuring that our members have access to reliable internet. For too long, rural communities have been left behind, and ECE Fiber is closing that gap. By the end of 2024, we've built over 1,900 miles of fiber line, connecting over 4,000 members. And we secured over $19 million in grants to continue expanding broadband access in our area. So if you didn't get a chance to talk with one of our fiber employees before the meeting, give us a call tomorrow or visit ecefiber.com to check out this year's construction plans. Please turn to page 9 in the annual report as we take a moment to look at last year's finances. In 2024, ECE's operating revenue was $144 million. Residential sales, including seasonal sales, accounted for over 67% of our revenue, while commercial and industrial sales contributed nearly 28%. And other sources of revenue accounted for the last 5%. And how did we use that revenue in 2024, you might ask? Purchase power, the majority of which we buy from Great River Energy, accounted for over 50% of our costs. And as you can see, 11% was dedicated to distribution, and then over 8% for the depreciation of the current assets we have on the books. And the margins category is necessary to meet our loan obligations, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And finally, administrative services, interest, taxes, and member accounts and service equated to a little over 17% of our uses of revenue last year. Okay, about those margins. As a co-op, you provide capital that allows us to deliver electricity to you. Last year, there was a margin above our cost of operation of nearly 6%. When this happens, that margin gets allocated to you in the form of capital credits. In 2024, we were able to pay out $2 million in capital credits to our members, which includes both general retirement and estates. To date, ECE has returned $106.3 million to its members. That simply does not happen in a for-profit utility. Cooperative principle number 3 ensures your economic participation in ECE. As we move through 2025, we remain committed to innovation, reliability, and service excellence. We will continue investing in infrastructure, embracing new technology, and strengthening the communities we serve. If you have any questions about the contents of the executive or annual report, please feel free to contact us at a later date for a more private answer, or you can raise your hand now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. We've got a mic in the room, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. We can't have none.
I'll hold it for you.
All right. My name's Jason. I just had one question. We're looking for some clarification on some of your numbers.
Okay.
On the last page, you welcomed 5,000 new members. Also, 3,800 members for ECE Fiber. Is the 5,000 already accounting for the 3,800?
That'd be a cumulative number of both, because ECE, so what's going to happen is ECE Fiber members who also have electricity will have two memberships. So one as an ECE Fiber member and one as an ECE member for electricity. The governing components of that are going to be part of a bylaw change that'll be coming next year. The anticipation from the board, I think, is that ECE members who take electricity will have full voting rights and all of the full member privileges, while people who take ECE Fiber will not necessarily have voting rights on those on that membership. The reality is most of the people who take ECE Fiber will also be ECE Electric members, but there may be areas in the surrounding communities that we don't provide electricity, but we will provide fiber. So that cumulative number is the total. The 3,800 was ECE Fiber.
Okay, and then with that, it shows that we had a kilowatt hour sold decrease for 24 as opposed to previous year.
Yep.
And so with all these new members, can you explain the decrease in kilowatt usage?
For sure, yeah. So a lot of reasons. We have our country and our state in particular has had very active conservation programs. So think LED light bulbs, more efficient refrigerators, more efficient washers and dryers, but probably the bigger reason for that is weather, right? The winter was not as cold, particularly the beginning of 2024 and the end of 2024. Those are seasons where we sell a lot of kilowatt hours, but they were milder winters, and so the kilowatt hour sales were a little bit less, particularly the beginning of 2024. Our winter last year, this last winter we just finished up, was a pretty normal winter from a heating degree day calculation number, but the winter before that was really mild. So our kilowatt hour sales dropped off in January and February. Those are pretty big months for us. And then also June, July, and August, summer, a lot of air conditioner sales. It was a pretty mild summer as well. We didn't have as many warm days. Now, we don't really, from an energy perspective, want to see really hot days. Drives up the cost of electricity, but we didn't even see a lot of 80, 85 degree days last summer. It was a pretty mild summer overall. So, great question though.
I got it.
Dennis Denker with North Branch. My question is, are we getting any of our electricity out of Canada?
It's a great question. I imagine you're referring to the tariffs.
Yeah.
Anybody hear about tariffs around this country? So I'm not going to get into the politics of tariffs, but what I will tell you is, as a practical matter, tariffs have not affected us directly yet. So the MISO market, which is the market that serves electricity to Minnesota, East Central Energy, and actually through the entire kind of mid-continent area, Manitoba all the way down to Louisiana. So that whole area is interconnected, and the market functions within that entire geography. And so about 1% of the MISO market is from Manitoba, from Canada. And so even with the tariffs, there's a significantly low amount of electricity coming from Canada. Now, just so happens we have high voltage lines that go right through our service territory that are coming from Canada. But from a financial perspective, I would say that electricity coming from Canada to the United States has had very little impact on electric rates. In fact, none for you, for us. But that was the story when the first tariffs went on. If you'll recall, it was about Canada. Since then, if you have a TV or a radio, you'll know that there were many more tariffs, or a phone, I should probably say. But the reality is those tariffs on goods coming from overseas, if they stay on, will have a material effect on us in terms of cost. Now, that said, the cost of everything continues to rise, tariffs or no tariffs. So I'm not going to stand up here and tell you what I think is going to happen with tariffs, but what I will tell you is if the tariffs stay on long enough, they will rise the price of goods, some of which we purchase, cables and things like that, and they will drive prices up. We are fortunate that we have a strong warehouse and good inventory in our organization, so we haven't had any effects from that yet, but as time goes on, there would be an impact. So great question, and certainly timely with everything going on.
What percentage of the commodities that the co-op buys is foreign?
I would say it's a relatively low amount. I mean, I don't have a number on a piece of paper here, and I don't know that we could provide that tonight. A lot of the things that we buy are made in America. A lot of our fiber is made on the East Coast. I believe it's North Carolina. So a lot of the goods that we buy are made in America. But I was at a meeting down in Maple Grove at Great River Energy just last week, and the reality is there are things that are part of our infrastructure that are made overseas, and they will eventually have an impact. Great question.
I got it. Okay. See, it may be that I just neglected seeing it, but I know solar has continued to increase in use. And I don't know how it affects the cooperative's buyback of what the individual homeowners are producing. But have you broken that down? I wonder over the years how much the solar buyback, I know it goes along with purchase power, I assume, but has that substantially increased, or have you seen much change as far as solar amongst the members?
Sure.
Creating it and obviously selling it back to the company?
Be careful, you just put a quarter in the jukebox there. It's a topic I'm really passionate about for a lot of reasons, right? So let me start with this. We live in America. If people want to produce their own electricity on their property to power their own house, I believe they have every right to do that. That said, the state of Minnesota requires utilities in general, cooperatives as well, to purchase that electricity back at a retail rate. So if you walked into the hardware store in Braham with an armful of hammers and asked them what they're selling hammers for, and then sold your hammers to them for the same price, eventually they wouldn't be able to pay their electric bill, right? And so that's the issue with it. And just to be clear, the law was passed with good intent. It wanted to motivate a new technology. It wanted to push people towards a new resource and spur a market on. Incentives from government, that's not new. My belief is we've lived past that, right? The early adopters have adopted, and now we're starting to get to where it's becoming an entrepreneurial opportunity for folks. So what I would like to see, and what we have lobbied for as a statewide organization, is changes to the law that grandfather existing members, in our case, to produce their own energy, but then allow for some other mechanism for buyback, an average wholesale cost or something like that. The ideal situation would be a member who installs something that's sized to produce their own load, cover their own load. What I'll say, so with all that said, what I'll say is there is not today a material impact on your rates because of people who install solar. There's no reason to be upset with your neighbor who installs solar. This is a St. Paul issue that we need to resolve. We are doing a good job of it. Our statewide organization is doing a good job of advocating for the next chapter of what renewable energy looks like in Minnesota. I believe that Minnesota is well positioned to do the things that we're doing responsibly in a way that doesn't shift costs to other members. So like a lot of things, the answer is not black or white. Solar's not bad, but there are applications where it can be difficult for us. We like to see utility scale solar. You'll see us building more solar as time goes on, and we're going to do it with rates that are competitive to our other options, in our case, Great River Energy. And so as you see us install more solar, know that we're doing it not in an effort of only sustainability, but to reduce costs for our members.
More specific on my question was, though, have you seen an increase in the overall percentage of purchase power coming from solar? And if so, is it like minuscule, or is it getting to a point where it's 10,
Right.
15%?
No, so I'm sorry, yeah. So probably 99% of the energy that we buy comes from Great River Energy, less than 1% from people who install it on their homes. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't more direct. I get that a lot.
And this kind of caveats to what he was talking about and your interest in solar. My interest is in wondering why they determine that good farmland is the place to put solar energy instead of using the land that can't be used for something else.
Sure.
I'm looking down the road. We want to continue to make our farming communities prosper and maintain the fact that they're feeding us.
Right.
But when we're taking that land and turning it into a solar field, I'm wondering why we can't choose other places for the solar.
Yeah.
Not that it isn't a good thing, but I see it taking over the land that is used to feed us.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Thank you. I didn't catch your name.
Carol.
Carol? Carol, thanks for that question or that comment. So what I'll say about that is a conversation. It's happening both in Minnesota and in Washington, D.C. for exactly the reason you just stated. We have to feed our country. We have to feed the people. The United States is not a net importer of food. We are a net exporter. We don't just feed our country. We feed plenty of others. So it's a great point. And we also have private property rights in this country, right? If someone wants to stop farming their field for whatever reason, whether it's CRP or solar or something else, that's an important thing to have a part of that equation as well. I think there's efforts to talk about that from a legal standpoint, which I think is a little bit of a slippery slope. But let me just give you our perspective as we think about solar. There's two things that we want to see if we develop utility scale solar. We need three-phase power. Okay, so many of you probably live on a road where there's only single-phase power, the primary line on the top and the neutral below it. But then if you see a cross-arm on a pole, you might have either two phases or three phases of power. We need three-phase in order to connect large-scale solar. Three-phase power usually only exists closer to towns because that's where our substations are, right? The problem with that is the land more expensive closer to town or further from town, right? So we want to find affordable land that's close to three-phase power. And the conversation about farmland is also, it's one that's come up. And it's come up in like southwestern Minnesota where some of this stuff is happening. Now, thankfully for farmers down there, the land prices are so high anyway that the solar developers couldn't afford to put solar there. So I think it's a little bit of a supply and demand issue, to be honest with you, but we do have to be careful that we don't over-incentivize these goods and then end up with a lack of farming production. So I think your point is well taken, and it's something that I know our elected officials in Washington, D.C. Have recognized and kind of brought up as an issue.
To go along with that, is there more profitability in solar versus wind?
So I don't know if profitability is a great word. How I would describe it is production. So wind production is going to be higher on a per megawatt basis than solar would be. But the problem with wind, of anybody who has lived on a farm, if anything moves, what does it eventually do? It breaks, right? And so solar generally requires less maintenance because there's no moving parts to speak of, where wind, you have turbines that are spinning around quite a bit. And so on a cost basis, at utility scale, wind is more affordable, but does require more maintenance. That's why you don't see a lot of residential wind, is because when you build it smaller and cheaper, what does it do? It breaks, right?
Is it cheaper to do solar than it is wind? For a
For a
regular
homeowner?
person? Yes.
Yeah, for a small scale. ECE would probably never develop wind ourselves. The cost of it is high, and the permitting is a little different. But solar, at the scale that we would build it, or that a homeowner would do it, I mean, so we have these interconnected, what's called distributed generation systems, and almost all of them are solar, like 95%, 99% probably are solar. So not much small scale wind anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Those are great questions. We got another one in the back. Looks like we got the pump primed now.
Hi, my name is Larry Nelson. I live in Harris. Could you talk about the battery project that was scheduled for Cambridge? I know they talked about it a couple years ago, but I haven't heard too much lately.
Yeah, yes, sir. So he's referring to a project that is taking place in Cambridge at a substation just north of town, also where Great River Energy has a natural gas peaking plant. And if you drive by there, you might see a lot of work going on there right now. But that work that's going on there now is actually fuel oil tanks that are being constructed. And so that battery project is by a company called Form Energy. And essentially, if you study the chemistry of rust or oxidation, that's like burning something really, really slowly. And so when you rust something, it creates heat, and that heat can be used to generate electricity. The problem with the Form Energy project, there's a few problems. Number one, the goods and getting the project going has taken a little longer than they anticipated. There are some conversations about the round-trip efficiency. So you never are going to have anything that's going to be 100% efficient, or 100% efficient. You're always going to have something that, whether it's drag or heat loss or things that cause inefficiencies. So in other words, when you put a unit of electricity in, you're never going to get a full unit back out of a battery, right? It's not going to be 100% efficient. So different battery technologies have different levels of efficiency. Lithium-ion batteries, for example, like in an electric vehicle or in battery storage that people sometimes put in their homes, has a reasonably good efficiency, but the lifespan of those batteries is not as good as some other technologies. This project in Cambridge, Form Energy, has a much longer life, but it's much less efficient. And so I think there's a lot of studies still going on about the feasibility. And keep in mind, this project was always intended to be an R&D project. In other words, research only. Like, they're looking to see, how does this technology work? Is it feasible to do at scale? It was never meant to take the place of any generation assets or be a kind of fundamental resource to power our community. It really was an exploration project by Great River Energy. I expect that we're going to see that project continue to move forward. I don't think it's been backburnered or shuttered or anything like that. I would expect to see that project move forward. I think the timeline's just taking a little longer than people had thought.
Last question for me. How many households have solar energy on their roof or on their yards?
Just under 700,
Just households, not...
780,
Okay.
around there.
Okay.
And if you were to look at a chart over time, because I used to build the chart, we've seen a big uptick in the last, say 5 to 10 years, 10 years probably. So, certainly the interest has grown.
What's that? Well, I say we've had solar on our roof for 5 years. So I'm just curious how many other people have it. Anybody in this room have solar on their roof?
I know there's a couple. Yep. Yeah, and I want to be clear, if my comments weren't earlier, ECE is not anti-solar, one bit. I support the right of people to do that. I think it's a great opportunity, but we just need to make sure that it doesn't shift costs to the rest of the membership. So that's the conversation we intend to have about it. Any other questions? Everybody's just waiting to see who wins the prizes. I want to thank you for the opportunity. I told employees this last week, The annual meeting is an important opportunity for you, and it's an important opportunity for this organization to engage with its members. So we appreciate you being here, appreciate the questions and the conversations that are happening around the room before and after the meeting. And I'd like to welcome our board chair, Jerry Tweet, back to the stage.
Thank you, Justin. Great questions, great comments. Appreciate it. Without objection, the executive report will stand approved. There is no old business to be taken up at this time. The cooperative bylaws require all resolutions to be submitted in writing prior to the annual business meeting. We have received no resolutions this year. Is there any new business? Is there any new business? Is there any new business? Our thanks to the ECE members who serve on the Credentials and Election Committee. This group plays a critical role in ensuring that our election process is in full compliance with state statutes and our cooperative's bylaws. We appreciate their tireless efforts behind the scenes to ensure that every election is conducted with the utmost fairness and transparency. It's important to note that this committee does not participate in the sending or counting of ballots. This crucial task is entrusted to a third-party vendor who ensures that the process is conducted securely and confidentially. Survey and Ballot Systems handles all aspects of ballot distribution, collection, and counting, providing an independent and unbiased election process. According to the ECE bylaws, directors can be nominated by petition or by board-approved nominating committee. This year, in District Number 2, only one candidate was nominated by petition for the available four-year seat on the board of directors. That candidate, Lonnie Johnson, was confirmed by ECE's legal counsel and the Credentials and Election Committee and was acclaimed director. Voting by ballot was not necessary. Lonnie, please stand to be recognized. At this time, Claire Scharf of Parker Satram Law Office will announce the results of the elections in Districts 1, 4, and 5. Claire.
Good evening. The East Central Energy Credentials and Election Committee met on February 17th and approved Stephen Fisher and Aaron Gustafson as District 1 candidates. A total of 1,226 votes were counted. With the highest number of votes, Stephen Fisher is elected to a 3-year term in District 1. And is Stephen here tonight? If you are, okay, he's right back there. Congratulations. And the Credentials and Election Committee approved Adam Curtis and Ron Hass as District 4 candidates. A total of 1,014 votes were counted. With the highest number of votes, Ron Hass is elected to a 4-year term in District 4. And Ron, are you here tonight? Okay, congratulations. And the Credentials and Election Committee approved Jack Boleen, Luann Johnson, Doug Sabinosh, and Brent Thompson as District 5 candidates. A total of 874 votes were counted. With the highest number of votes, Doug Sabinosh is elected to a 4-year term in District 5. And Doug, are you here tonight? Over there. Congratulations.
Congratulations to our new directors. Thank you to everyone who made time to attend the ECE Central Energy's 89th Annual Meeting. There is no further business. The 2025 Annual Business Meeting is hereby adjourned. At this time, we will welcome Ty Hoagland to the stage to draw for prizes.
What we've all been waiting for. Get the tickets out. All right. Before we get